Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is January 9th, 2026. Appreciate you being here. With me today to at least start the show is Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. I think Karl will be in a little bit. So happy to see y'all. It's Friday. Yay, fry yay. I'm not sure on that one. Stress and all the other things that go with it. But we're here to, as always, talk about some of the, not only the AI news and the current things going on, but just dive a little bit deeper into some of the AI topics that we find interesting or people have brought to us. And there's a lot of different ways that might happen, by the way. If you're, as we always say, if you're listening to us live, great. We love you. Come over to YouTube, be part of the conversation. Like Jen is already saying this morning, that's a great way to interact. But also, we understand not everybody's available at 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And so other ways that you can interact with us is obviously leaving a comment if you're listening to us on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you happen to find us. But you can also join our community, and that's by going to the Daily AI Show community.com, and you can join our Slack community there. Of course, a like of this particular episode, a share, a subscribe, all those things on any of the platforms, as all creators of content say, it does help quite a bit. So if you think about it and you don't mind just smashing that thumbs up button if you happen to like what we're doing today, that's always greatly appreciated as well. Okay, with all that said, hey, Greg as well, thanks for being in the comments. With all that said, let's jump into some of the more recent news. Yesterday, we talked a lot about Claude Code for good reason. It's been in the news a lot, and we spent a good 30 minutes there. But today, let's get back to just kind of hitting some of the other news stories that have been swirling around. CES is done. There's been a lot coming out of that as about people sort of wrap up what they think about it. I'll tell you guys, I don't know if you heard this from CES, but I have more than not heard people, other than the like, look at this robot, I can do a crazy thing. More than not, I've heard people say, wow, there wasn't as much AI as I thought. That's interesting. Sabrina said that. And then also, it was a bit underwhelming. That's if I was to give it a general consensus of just what's come through the webs and the socials to me, and of course that might be skewed. That's kind of what I heard. Have you guys heard anything different as far as the success of CES, and I guess specifically as it applies to AI?
Well, I would say there was a pretty big splash with the Rubin full chipset architecture that NVIDIA announced and the incredible increase in compute capacity, speed, and reduced cost per token. That I think made a splash in AI news.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out. You're right about it. And you had talked on the show about the NVIDIA part of it. So you're right on that. Beth, what's your sort of like, I don't know, feeling, I guess, for lack of a better term?
I think that there was more revealed about the environment in which AI is going to happen, right? So the Vera Rubin was part of that, but also the Ava, right? With it's the little hologram container. And it may not be a CES thing, except I saw them like they happened at the same time. The Ava is like I don't have one, but when they show pictures next to a human head who's looking at the thing, it looks like it's a container of a hologram, and I think it's a relationship between Grok and someone else, the maker, and it can talk back and forth and have those kinds of conversations, and I think it's voiced by a Grok personality or by Grok personalities.
You know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of implications of where that could work, or applications rather, not implications, applications of where that could work, from loneliness to all the things on the mental health spectrum. But like, I don't know. I mean, if I had a little pop-up hologram on my desk, and I work from home, and I'm usually in the house majority of the time. I work from home remotely, but I work with tons of people. I'm not in a room with them typically. You know, is that something that I would find to be a value add to my day? And that's a hard one, because like in one way it is an artificial companionship, almost like a coworker. I could see that. I could also see it being a distraction. But I could also, then just as easily, I could flip to the other side and say, yeah, but you know what? That might actually be really cool. I already use these other tools. I'm trying to get better at using like Whisper Flow and getting more into like the voice activation of it. Karl did a video yesterday about I know I said we weren't going to talk about Cloud Code, but he did a cool video of like an intro to Cloud Code. And by the way, that's in the Daily AI Show community in a channel called Cloud Code. So go watch that. We recorded it and it's awesome, especially if you're like me and you're like just dipping your toe. You're not like fully in the pool of Cloud Code. That's a good place to start. But he mentioned on the show yesterday, or I'm sorry, on that video, my point was just talking about how much easier it was for him to use WhisperFlow in interaction. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have that downloaded. I have not really leaned in fully. I mean, I have a nice mic right here and we're on the show every day. So certainly I talk into a mic a lot during the day. But when it comes to the interactions, I feel like I am not probably where I should be, because the reality is so much more of this is going to become vocal first or voice first, I think, in terms of interaction. So
I have WhisperFlow. I have WhisperFlow, and I'm in the process of shifting away from the habit of typing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I'll start typing and I stop and I go, oh, wait. And I reach over and press the function button and I start talking. And it really is going to change things. But I'm not yet. I'm only halfway through the process. I'm not yet at the point where I'm using it 100% of the time, which I should be.
What about you, Beth? Do you use it?
So I don't use WhisperFlow. I use Monologue because I subscribe to every.to, and that's their version of it. And it's free with the subscription to Every, as all of their software programs are. But it's funny, because it sits like off the screen, just on the right of the screen, and I can hit the option key, or pretty sure it's the option key, to bring it. It's not flagged for me in the same way that on the Apple keyboard there is a little mic, right? I'm looking at the phone and there's a little mic saying, Beth, don't you want to voice this? Right? Like, hey, you don't type. You're not good at typing with thumbs. Just do the thing. So I feel like I need the visual of like, don't type. I'm better on a keyboard for sure, but it's like just out of sight, out of mind right now.
You know, it's funny here, and then we can get into the news. Just as I think about this, one of my many not downfalls, things I could work on, things I could always improve on. We're always in constant state of improvement, right? And you know, as I sit at almost 48, next month will be 48. You know, one thing I could certainly do a better job of, and I've continued to work on, is just being more concise. And I'm talking about from the time I was a kid. I remember conversations with my very first boss when I was like 12. I was like assistant teaching karate, and then I was a paid job. And my boss, Mark Dumas, God love him, I'm still friends with him. But Mark was my very, very first boss. And Mark would look at me in my face at 12 and go, tell me in 9 words. And it was good feedback. He wasn't being mean about it, but it was a great reminder, even at 9, that Brian, you say too many words. Now, here's the reason I bring that up. Great for a talk show. I can fill an hour. We all know that. Yeah.
You found your place, Brian.
I did. I can fill an hour. I can stretch. You know, they do the stretch thing. I'm your guy. Grab me, put me on stage. I'll fill 30 minutes. I have no problem with that. But that's not great. That's fine for these areas, but it's not great. And my point to all of this is saying this is, my lead up is, my concern with a WhisperFlow or moving towards this more voice forward interactions day in and day out, although I know that's what we do with people, is it's because I know AI doesn't care. It's not forcing me to keep on my path of being concise. Because I can ramble on and AI will just happily listen. It won't do a Mark Dumas and say 5 words or less. AI will just keep the mic open and be like, I guess he's done. And then it'll get rid of all the stuff that was rambling and offshoots. And then it just comes back and says, okay, this is what he meant to do. And so I do worry that it's going to reinforce bad habits, frankly, because I won't have as much of a pressure to be concise with AI specifically, because AI doesn't really care. I mean, sure, it's tokens, but it doesn't really care.
So this is one of those places where I think this is one of those places
Greg,
where
why are you so cold? Dang.
This is one of those places where I think being able to vibe code a personal tool would help, right? Because that's not something that WhisperFlow or Monologue is going to do out of the box. But if you wanted to work on concision, what is the word, Andy? Concision. Oh, cool. I found it on my own, sort of. If you wanted to work on that, you could conceivably vibe code something that would like cut you off in 30 seconds and say, all right, I think I got it, or whatever that is. But I mean, it's the personalization of our AI interactions, right?
On the other, it's one thing that WhisperFlow does do some kind of editing of what you've spoken in order to present what it is that you're going to actually press enter on and deliver to the AI. But the AI also can take a lot of extraneous stuff and ignore it, right? It knows how to pay attention to the relevant components of what you said. So the full pipeline, but WhisperFlow, cleaning things up, and then delivering it to a model, I think you can be voluble as Brian is, and it's not going to impinge on the understanding of the AI. Now, it might actually reduce the intelligibility for humans listening to you, Brian. We're going to say, what did he start talking about now? Where did that go?
That's
the AI has no problem with it.
Right. That's the bad habit thing. I mean, one of the things that I am not unlike Brian in some ways, I think out loud and I get to a place as I am talking through my thoughts. So if I am doing it with that Apple little microphone, I go to a certain place and then I go, wait, that's not what I want. No, now I understand what I want. This is what I want, but it types all of that. Yeah. Right. In monologue, it only types the thing that I understood that I wanted at the end. Thank you.
That is helpful. It reminds me of Robert. For those who are our OG listeners, Robert was one of our first co-hosts along with us, and moved on to other things. But, Robert would say that often to us too, Beth, like, you and me think out loud. And it's true. So there's a lot more words coming out of my mouth, and that's true, but it's also how I process. For better or worse, for the people around me, I suppose. Ask my wife, I guess. We'll get her on the call. Ask my wife and my daughter. Okay. Hey, Karl's here, by the way, as well. And Karl, just before we really started getting the news, we've been talking about, we were talking about CS, but more specifically, I was referencing you actually about how yesterday on the Club Code video, you talked about, look, just use WhisperFlow and just speak it in. It's going to be much easier. So my question to you real quick before we move over to news is, what percentage of your daily AI interactions would you say now are voice activated or WhisperFlow or some variation of that?
Let's say 70 to 80%.
Really? You're at that level now?
Yeah, I don't, it's now when I'm actually writing a post or being deliberate, like let's say an email or something that I don't know how to describe it. There's certain times where I need to write because my train of thought kind of gets convoluted, and for me to get from my thoughts to a concise thing, it's better for me to write. But for majority of the work I do in terms of AI, going through whatever literally I'm doing, it's a quick press on a press on the function key and I just go with it. And it does a really, really good job of it. What I do is I don't just stream of conscious. I still try to chunk my thoughts into here's one idea and then I'm done. Another idea, then I'm done. And I will sometimes go back and just edit it if I'm trying to do if I'm trying to communicate something with somebody. That's when I edit it like just a little bit, because sometimes my train of thought, it's like if you read it, you're like, this kind of makes sense, but it's not what I'm trying to convey. So I have to actually come back and re-edit it. But I feel it would take too long for me to write a lot of this stuff. It's just faster for me to just talk it through. Pretty much all communication with like our team is all through voice, eventually to text. And literally anything I do on my phone is like the best use case I've seen my business partner do. We were at a client's office and their Wi-Fi was like this really long string of numbers. And I just by default start, trying to I'm trying to put all the numbers in. He's just like, oh, 6, 6, 7, 6, 6, 1. Like he just read through and it's like, oh, that's actually a really smart idea. And then I'm like, oh, but it's kind of, you kind of have to retrain your brain on put all this, using this for everything, which is now like my brain's kind of rewired to do that. It's kind of crazy.
I think, and you missed it, but Andy said he was about 50%. And Beth, I don't know, you gave us a percentage, but you're using it. So you're at what would you say, Beth? Daily use?
It depends on how much of the ADA medication is still in the system. ADHD medication is still in the system. I'd say give me a 25%, 30%.
Okay, I'm definitely lower than y'all. Y'all say Karl 70, 80, Andy 50, Beth 25, and I would say I'm 5% or less. I mean, I definitely use it, but I'll be honest with you, I also swing this mic. It's on a boom, but it's on a swing. And so I swing this mic. And I think that's part of my problem too, is that the mic is about 2 feet that way during the time. So it's not immediately in front of me, and it doesn't, like you were saying, Beth. All right. Look, this is an interesting conversation. I'd be curious, anybody in the comments, if you want to throw in, your percentage of voice activated. I'd be just curious. It's sort of like an informal poll. Because my guess is in 2026, whatever our percentages are that are self-evaluations, they will all be higher at the end of 2026. That's my guess. So we'll have to see where it goes, and maybe there'll be new tools that'll come out. Okay, let's switch over to actual, last 24, 48 hour type news. Go ahead, Beth. I'm sorry.
I just want to, no, I'm switching with you, but I have the details now on Project Ava is, it's Razer Project Ava, and it's a 5.5-inch 3D hologram assistant. It is pitch, lives in a glass tube on your desk, powered by Grok. It sees your screen. It gives pro gaming tips and manages your life. That's that's their pitch for it. So that's what it is. And it did come at CES. I was right.
So a US dollar bill is 6 inches, right? That's usually a good standard to measure or whatever. So a little bit shorter, or like a smartphone is what I would say. So it's kind of like a glass tube or whatever, smartphone sitting on your desk or whatever, and that's what you're interacting with. So certainly nothing big, something that sounds portable. Also, though, you say Grok, you say gaming, and I'm thinking, this seems like maybe that's where their focus is versus maybe a work companion, right?
Well, and manages your life. I mean, the thing that is interesting to me is that as we get more voice interactive, I am going to want something that can see, right? Like, hey, turn your vision on. This is what I'm doing. I don't need you for gaming, but what else is in your training data? Because at this point, I mean, it's ridiculous that all I have to do is take a screenshot and I can talk with an expert about what I'm seeing on the screen. But now I don't even want to do that. I just want something right here that is also seeing the screen. But
it's amazing how far we've come, right, Beth, with our expectations. Like, what I have to copy it and move it and forget it. I'm not doing all that work. I can see Karl's like, yes. All right. Yeah. Let me throw it to Andy. Andy, you've been hanging out with us. Andy, what is your one or even two news stories that you were thinking about today?
Yeah, there's not a lot of news going on right at the moment compared to the flurries that we sometimes get, the gusts of news. But there are two main stories that I think are prominent in the newsletters, one about OpenAI and one about Google. And there's lots of other smatterings out there, but let's just talk about those two just so you have them top of mind. The first one is OpenAI's announcements about ChatGPT Health. We spoke about it briefly yesterday. It's not there yet. It's going to be a new tab inside ChatGPT and it will let you link your medical records to ChatGPT in a private way, like that the information doesn't ever go out anywhere. You can add it to the context of a conversation through that integration, but it will never be released or revealed in any way. So they say. And so that's coming. It's right now in a limited beta via a wait list. If you want to sign up for the wait list, I'm going to wait, to see where it shows up as a tab. And it's going to be available not only on ChatGPT on the desktop, but also on the iOS availability and presumably Android as well. Okay, another little tiny story about OpenAI that is they're acquiring a company called Convogo, which is a business software platform that improves leadership assessments and feedback to leadership. I thought that was kind of interesting. Now they're not buying the product, but you can see how ChatGPT Enterprise is going to integrate using that team. It's an acqui-hire in effect. They're going to use that team to add another set of products to use of ChatGPT in the enterprise. And I think that's very interesting. And it's reflective of OpenAI's initiatives to create a really wide product suite, not just chat, but a whole range of AI-powered products that are applied in different contexts. Okay.
Andy, I wanted to just add to that because they also announced OpenAI for healthcare, which is HIPAA compliant.
Yes.
Use, right?
Yes.
So ChatGPT for healthcare is added to that, but they're already rolling it out to a bunch of institutions.
Yeah, like Stanford Medicine is already using it. UCSF, local hospital systems are they're like their proving ground, I think.
Yeah, so I think the thought was like they've had I don't know how many thousands of like physicians, surgeons at like literally adding their knowledge or data or training or whatever it is into this whole system. And then there was thoughts that, if healthcare is one, what is the next area, right? Because I don't know if anyone knows about a tool called Open Evidence. So Open Evidence is only for doctors, where it's like a big thousand rag system essentially of medical journals. And if you have like a patient's like, hey, I want to here's the symptoms, here's what this person has, it'll pull from all the medical journals, like from like whatever their database is, and provide you with like a potential diagnosis of what that is, and here's the reasons why, and here's the cited sources, and here's the journals that contribute to that. So the first person there was like, wait a minute, is this kind of the same thing where that's what I was thinking about. It's not ChatGPT for health, but it's the OpenAI for healthcare, because I'm like, oh, any of those systems are now on OpenAI's like target, because it's like, why would I use that when I have ChatGPT connected to my health, connected to this, right? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the healthcare suite that's being used by hospitals and practitioners is a clinical reasoning platform.
Yeah.
So it's collecting all kinds of information and it's supporting the physicians in their practices in those hospital systems with advanced reasoning for healthcare. All right. So the other piece is about Google, and that is that first of all, Google with the success of Gemini now has over 20% of global chat traffic, which means it's chipping away at ChatGPT's prominence there. And what they've now announced is further integration of Gemini into their suite of products. Now, Gemini's been available in the Gmail interface. You have a little, the little star symbol up there in the top right. You click on that. A panel opens on the right, and you can search your inbox. You can query your inbox. You can ask it to draft emails in response to that sort of thing. But they're announcing a new thing that's coming soon called AI Inbox, which changes the interface pretty substantially. So right now, of course, you've got a list of all the incoming email. You've got folders on the left, and you've got Gemini on the right. AI Inbox, I haven't seen any designs for it, but it's going to be something very different. It's going to be an AI assistant that you interact with that basically, I think it's going to be similar to Hux, right? I use Hux, it gives me a voice sort of podcast dialogue between a male and a female voice discussing my inbox, right? So here's what you got in your inbox today, and this you need to pay attention to, this you don't. Well, that's what I think is going to come out of AI inbox when it comes about. So
yeah, I just want to talk on that really quick. I don't know more than you do on that one, but you can kind of do this with Gemini now and search through your inbox and stuff. Right. So as Gemini is tied to calendar, and inbox and meeting notes, if you're doing business or whatever, like we do it scaled, this makes a lot of sense to me. We'll have to see if it looks like a superhuman or a Hux or other types of sort of inbox cleaners, if you will. But what I'm personally looking for is what everybody's looking for, is that deep integration that says, hey, on the work side, I'll say, hey, you talk to these clients. I don't need to isolate in an email. There might have been 4 or 5 different email chains started with a client. And then there might have been several people from that client, that company. And that gets really, really confusing in an inbox. It's hard to keep things situated. So an AI inbox that is smart enough to bring me summaries across multiple emails, also knows that I had a call and a transcript from a Google Meet with them, let's say 2 weeks ago, and also understands that I have 3 upcoming meetings in the next 2 weeks with that client of various people, and can synthesize that together in an AI inbox. This is my imagination. I have no idea if this is what I'll do. That is a very powerful tool. We kind of have all this now. You can piece this all together with Gemini. So the fact that the tech already exists and seeing what they do in AI mode inside of Chrome and just your chat window makes me excited for whatever this new variation is. Now, it may not live up to that, but that's certainly where I would like to see it go. So,
which is really unfortunate, because for those who are on like Outlook, yeah, you kind of can do that with Copilot, but I'm like, that's what I was looking at. By the way, no one has it, right? Because it seemed that it was already released and everybody has it, but I don't have it. So none of you have it, right? You haven't seen. Okay,
I didn't check today, but no, I don't think so.
No, we just have Gemini in the inbox, right?
Yeah, you have Gemini in there, but you don't have the AI inbox. Yeah, so I'm like, why hasn't Microsoft been able to do that, like an AI inbox that does that? Now, the thing that got me is like, what happens now to email marketing? Like, what if your AI, like, what do you set? You're like, because Google tried to do the promotions and then like they tried to flip it, but even then my inbox is so full of, I don't know, stuff. I was like, can an AI, probably Gemini 3 is probably smart enough to just get rid of everything that I don't want, and I'll just do it for me. So that's what I'm looking really forward to. That specific, like, all the people who send me stupid marketing emails, what happens to you? Like, where does that go?
Yeah,
really interesting.
By the way, in that news, and we move on, but in that news, they did mention about ads and how that will have to support. I mean, we already have ads in our Gmail, but in that, when I saw the press release or blog or whatever it was about this new AI inbox, they straight up said like, "Hey, this will be supported by ads, carefully curated, selected ads." So nothing really new there. That's exactly how Gmail already kind of exists and stuff. And YouTube has gotten a lot worse with it lately as far as where they put their sponsored videos. So this is something we're already dealing with any free tier, but it also opens up the idea of a perhaps paid tier of Gmail, and that would be interesting as well. So
one last point, little factoid on Google. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, it just overtook Apple as the number 2 most valuable company in the world, and it's behind NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is somewhere around $4.5 trillion, I think, at this point. And Google is now, or Alphabet, I'll always call them Google, but Alphabet is 3.9 trillion. So it's just approaching 4 trillion. And that's on the strength of Gemini, really, on the back of the incredible value of Gemini and the TPUs. So the TPUs that Google are building, and the adoption of the TPUs in competition with NVIDIA is what's really giving the investor community, optimism about the future of Google's revenue streams.
Yeah.
Yep. And yesterday, Demi Sasabis posted about getting their hands on the awesome new Atlas robots, because that information came out on January 5th. Boston Dynamics will begin production of the new Atlas robots at its Boston headquarters immediately, and all deployments are already fully committed to 2026 between Hyundai and Google DeepMind in the coming months, scheduled to ship to Hyundai and Google DeepMind in the coming months. So I expect that is another piece of the Alphabet profitability, right? Being able to move. All right. So I have questions in terms of news kinds of things, but Karl, do you have a news story, or Andy, do you have other news stories you want to talk about? I have one that I think is juicy. Andy, you're muted, or my audio.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to just mention that in all of our discussion yesterday about Claude Code and our focus on Claude Code recently, I think we missed stating assertively that they just released Claude Code 2.1.0, okay, which
Yes.
adds some very cool things for primarily power users and enterprise teams. That's the version that is the latest version. I'm not on that version. I have an earlier version of it. So I don't know that I would get any particular advantage from moving up to Claude Code 2.1. Karl, any thoughts about that?
I did mention it. I didn't mention it by name. I just said they have a new release. It does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you heard that yesterday, that's what I meant. Andy's just giving it more clarity today.
Right.
Karl, have you upgraded?
Attendant to that, Anthropic, the creators of Claude and Claude Code, have just finished a $10 billion funding round that values Anthropic at $350 billion. Now that's about half of the value of OpenAI, which, is in the same ballpark, right? When you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, Anthropic and OpenAI are the major players out there, and Google. Those are the three that are really becoming the triumvirate of AI at this point, in my view.
I'm sure Elon Musk would have something to say about that, with the amount of money he's spending and then like what he's spending on, right? Because in terms of like his data centers and like the crazy stuff that he's doing, so he's probably.
Yeah, but I also saw on that point, I was surprised to see that their quarterly revenue for XAI was under 200 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, but,
they're making enormous investments, but
right?
they're not monetizing XAI very well.
I think like
isn't that an Elon thing?
I don't think that's like, if he connects that to, isn't he? I don't know what his goal is to be where Grok is and where everybody uses it, right?
We know his goal. His goal is to kick sand in OpenAI's eyes and take them down.
Yeah, but I mean, like, for real though, like that's like connecting Grok into Tesla and SpaceX to me is like that's where the real play would be, right? Because if your Tesla has Grok, everybody who has a Tesla has Grok, and it's just, I think that's where
and all X users have Grok.
All
right?
X users,
or they may not use Grok in X, but they have it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the valuations of Tesla, I think, are driven largely by future revenue expectations around the Optimus robot line, and and the synergies that you're describing, like ultimately, X will, because it's a very, very competent AI system. But it doesn't yet have the consumer adoption.
If you have the robo taxis, right? Like if that does very well, then that's, and I think like I don't know if Waymo is still under a pause because of like it stopped during a power outage or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't know.
I think the pause is off. I think they deployed again. They updated, like they updated the problem. They updated the model so that it would behave differently with that problem.
Oh, okay.
But there is something very powerful about the idea of every Tesla owner being able to dispatch their Tesla with full autonomous driving into an auto, a robo-taxi mode, and let it make money for them and for Tesla.
Yeah.
I see those advantages, and I see the advantages of having integration with X, but they haven't yet demonstrated that in bottom line results.
No. But the BCI, the brain computer interface, Neuralink also, right? So part of it is we're deploying embodied AI in the Optimus robot, but the other side is there's more progress in us becoming enhanced embodied AI.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think there's a financial connection between Neuralink and Tesla or X, other than that, Elon Musk is the owner. I think those are separate entities.
I think I assume that everything that Elon owns is connected by the nature of Elon's ownership.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
My juicy news is that Sakana dropped another paper, and it is a collaboration with MIT, and it is Digital Red Queen, Adversarial Program Evolution in Core War with LLMs. So, does anybody remember Core War? Like, I was not something that I did. Core War was like a 1980s like program wars. You'd create your little program and you'd battle between your little program was your warrior. So what Sakana and MIT did was set that up with garbage code. So your digital warrior is just garbage code, and it has recursive improvement, right? So you have the individual warriors that little LLMs have spun up, or like any LLMs have spun up, and they are fighting to the death in an evolutionary model, right? Because this nothing ends here until one has won. So this is just a cool kind of thing. On one level, this is showing this is another recursive improvement story. The asterisk with it that makes it a little juicy is that there is a convergence place where evolution gets to a certain point, and then all of the improvements are converging. So there is a set of these are the things that evolutionary and narrowly give you the best advantages. And so wherever the graph starts, it does eventually go just across, right? All of the others are now just doing that as well. And it is the Red Queen analogy is from Through the Looking Glass, where the Red Queen and Alice are discovering that now when they're running, they're not getting anywhere. They just have to run to stay in the same place. And this has been something that's noticed in biological evolution. And now this is the digital evolution that is showing something similar.
Wow.
So go look. at
Yeah.
Sakana's new stuff. I mean, when Sakana releases something, we're all like, all right, let's dig in.
So it's a self-play algorithm that
It's a
embraces
co-
the Red Queen dynamics via continual adaptation.
Yep.
So it's a sort of a recursive model. Interesting. I'll have to read that. Or I'm sorry, I'll have to have Notebook LM read that
and deliver it to you by AI podcast.
Right.
It's something that's been noted in biological evolution as well. So one of the examples is that dolphins and sharks evolved similar bodies and structure, like what the skin is made of, those kinds of things, even though they're not evolutionarily on the same branch. They evolve those separately. And there are places where those things are true in other species as well. So
Very cool.
Well, that was quieter than I thought it was going to be. I think
I have another thing that's interesting that I haven't really fully understood yet, as I have not fully understood the import of the Red Queen, the digital Red Queen research. But the Neuron a few days ago posted a podcast interview with the CEO of a company called Pathways. And Pathways, it has developed a novel architecture that is focused on moving away from large language models that are transformers, and instead it operates in a way that is borrowing from some of the learnings from how the human brain actually operates. Okay, so they say that the AI industry has brute forced progress by scaling up a mathematically convenient but biologically implausible transformer architecture. And that there's a limit to that. And this is what Gary Marcus and many other commentators about transformers and LLMs and the scaling issues with those have been saying for a long time, that to get to official general intelligence that's similar to human intelligence, generalizable intelligence, it's not going to happen in LLMs. It's going to be something different. Well, Pathways and this really incredible woman who is the brains behind this innovation have used a graph-based dynamic of the brain and tensor-based reality of GPUs, and they kind of combine those two things together in an architecture called Baby Dragon Hatchling. So the interesting nomenclature, but Baby Dragon, they explain, why they've chosen that name for it, but it's moving towards a post-transformer world. And it's an AI that is not a frozen artifact of a past training run, but a living, adapting entity like our brain. And the hatchling is, like the kernel to start. It then learns to fly. The baby dragon learns to fly. So anyway, it's going to take some, work with, deep research and with a Notebook LM to synthesize this into a better understanding in my mind. But this may indeed be the thing that allows artificial intelligence to advance to artificial general intelligence. And so the Neuron, which is a very reputable and sort of highly technical newsletter, but also quite, approachable, you can read it easily. They did a full podcast episode. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to the first 10 minutes of it or so. But I think she goes in that podcast through an explanation of how her originally non-technical background, it caused her to see this opportunity to do something. And now that company is putting out something that's quite remarkable. So we'll keep an eye on it for you.
Awesome. Ooh, yeah. Gareth is asking the $1 million question. Do we think we have already hit general intelligence?
I don't think we've hit it yet. I think that there's AGI in different verticals, right? So, but we haven't completely generalized the application of an artificial intelligence so that it could be successful as a human might be successful with information and context and experience, could find its way into expertise beyond human capability in any area of human endeavor. So,
So-
it's not full AGI, but there is a sort of siloed AGI. There are super intelligences, actually, I believe, within certain silos at this point.
Right. It feels like when we were first talking about artificial general intelligence, we were really trying to figure out what the intelligence would be. So we were really focused on the word intelligence. And now I feel like we're really focused on general, right? Because the intelligence that has been developed in various silos is obviously superhuman in some ways, right? But now we're like, okay, so what would it mean? Now we think, all right, we're much closer. What is general? What is that? What's the bar that means general? Excellent. Karl, do you have something you want to share with the class?
Yeah, there was one thing, but I actually switched this. So there was a lot of for those who are following, Jaya Gupta provided this post on, called it context graphs, and essentially the crux of it's a long piece. There's been a lot of debate back and forth, but really it's about the how and the what. The what and the why. So the what is in companies, and he's talking about this from a SaaS perspective, systems of record, right? So you got all these SaaS companies who are essentially systems of record. And what he was saying is, like, for agents to truly be able to do this in the workplace, they don't just need the what, which is SOPs, all these things, what the system is supposed to do, but they also need the hows, because there's all these edge cases, nuances, one-offs, and how he calls it decision traces, how decisions are actually being made. And he says, like, these decisions could be on Slack, could be on email, could be in someone's head. Like, you can't just have, like, an agent will follow your instructions, but how does it get all the edge cases to be truly your agent, right? Because you still have to add those edge cases. So the thought, the piece was, how do you build such system when everything is still floating in all these different places? And so he's saying that the opportunity isn't about the system of record, it's actually at the decision traces level, is how do you collect all those everything that goes into making a process. So the example he was saying was like, okay, there was when you ask about, hey, what's the ARR? Well, like, annual recurring revenue of a company. When you talk to sales, they'll have a different answer. You talk to finance, they'll have a different answer. When you talk to marketing, they'll have a different answer. When you talk to operations, they'll have a different answer. And so, like, first of all, you're like, hey, what is the level set of actually getting that answer? But also, that ARR could mean different things, because, like, hey, we gave a deal to this company because we always give a deal to this company because they're a larger company. But that is never actually mentioned in the standard operating procedure or the actual how to do things. So your agent wouldn't know how to do that unless you fed it. And because it has no memory, or the memory's poor, it has to remember, you always have to keep feeding that. The only thing that I argue against this is that that's great for historical use cases. So historically, we gave a discount to this company every single year. Well, how about if another company you give a discount to in that instant for a new instance? I think it can only remember the past. It can't actually take into account the future or current when the environment changes or something happens, right? So nothing is always set exactly the same way. So really, again, back to what and why do we do things, and like when do we do it? So we give this discount to this company in December, always in December. You can add that to the agent workflow, but let's say, oh, the CEO at that time said, you know what, we got to give them a discount because they'll probably pay more in 2 quarters. How does your agent know that? And so those are small examples of like, the agent wouldn't be able to do that autonomously because they wouldn't have, you'd have to build something that takes in the account of all these decision traces. And so hence, at the end, I thought there's always going to be room for the human because they can provide the context unless you can extract that decision trace. I don't know how you'd extract that decision traces because that's how decisions are made, unless you completely give it to the agent and it's making the decisions. But then your question is, how is it making the decisions? What's it based out of? Which means, is it based on your previous decision traces and so on? So there's a big debate on that. And there's apparently a big opportunity to extract those decision traces if SaaS companies can do that, or the next level of SaaS is that's where it is.
Interesting. So Salesforce has a concept still, I think, called next best action, right? And that's the past informing the present to move toward the future, but potentially not as accurately.
No. And then there was a post by Jaya's partner. I forgot what his name was. His business partner had to post in why Salesforce can't do that, because we saw, I don't know, a couple of days ago or a week ago saying, hey, Salesforce went back because LLMs can't be trusted, right? So they have to have more if-then functions. But it's still the same thing. Your if-then functions are only fed in if. So there was an added piece there. So Palantir is in there because Palantir's method is they assign you an engineer and you engineer your entire process from the beginning, right? But that's very expensive to re-engineer this big process that you have. Well, or you collect all those decision traces together, but Salesforce doesn't do that. Like, they only can do if this, then that, adds Agentforce in there somewhere. But like, again, how do you collect all these? The CEO said we do this for this because we do this. You don't add that into the SOP. It's just a well-known company knowledge that you do that. So How do you collect that kind of stuff? Hence, new opportunity to collect those decision traces, because an agent can't handle. Like, if Andy was the CTO and he's like, hey, when we buy a certain product, we buy it this way, but if they do this for us and this, then we speed up our RFP process. That doesn't necessarily go into how the agent decides, right? But that's just based on Andy's knowledge. So how are we going to apply an agent to do that? So how do you collect that type of knowledge? And that's in all enterprises, all businesses, because we know there's always an exception. There always is a nuance. There's always edge cases, and an agent can't take care of that. And it goes back to actually the discussion on in general artificial general intelligence. Until it can do that, I don't think we can call it that way.
Right. So, yeah. But then people's individual intelligence is like, it feels like as we're going through and talking about intelligence, their intelligence is like perhaps recognizing the pattern in a given set of context or experience, and like there's so many there's I don't know if there's infinite context, but there's so much context that it might as well be infinite in a human understanding, I would think. Yeah.
Yes. I think they also mentions like in the end, you're still giving it to a prediction model. Like it's still predicting.
Right. It's still next.
So hence this leads to the argument that Jan LeCun had, Ilya Sutskever has, that like the LLM can only go so far. You need something else that is able to take into account hence decision traces and that stuff. And I don't know. And we're just talking about like regular, maybe a corporate business decision. What about external decisions based on visual cues? You're like, oh, if this happens, if I see it, then this happens.
Right.
How do you do that?
Right. Are the clouds green? So you should get away from windows, right? Because when the clouds are green, it's like tornado weather, right? So it's those kinds of visual representations that that potentially is then separated from the actual observation, right? Now we get away from windows for other
but
things.
That would be a simple example, right? If you go into a business context, there's certain cues that people would have, but then sometimes that's why there's a person who is your expert at this, but it's based on, a lot of times I was talking to one client, he's like, I asked him, why do you make decisions? Like a lot of times it's by intuition and gut because I've seen it before, but right. I've seen it, like, how do you take that and put it to an agent? That person's intuition after how many years of doing something is really tough to get that, right? Even no matter how great the prediction is, sometimes, because I asked, like, he was like, oh yeah, sometimes it's totally off. Like everything tells me to do this way, but just my instinct tells me to do it, and it was the right decision. Like
right.
An AI agent does not have that like, oh, I'm gonna go contrary. It's very tough.
Okay, but that for me then is also another reason for my wanting the parrot on the shoulder kind of thing, or the co-observer, because I may not be able to articulate the pattern that informed my gut choice.
Yeah.
But if I have an AI observer, yes, privacy, this is not a great idea in all sorts of situations, but AI would potentially be able to recognize and articulate the pattern that I am reacting to, that I can't articulate because I never needed to put it into words, but AI could conceivably put words around that.
I think so. I was trying to think about it from like a construction sense, right? So this is where, to me, glasses make a lot of sense, because while like someone's inspecting something, they have to see it. Right. And so if they're doing an inspection on, say, whatever, for a safety perspective, that person's knowledge and history, understanding of the materials and, you know, how it comes into play, you're augmented by AI, and maybe it can catch things that you might not, like as a beginner, but as someone 20 years experience, you can kind of feed off each other, because the AI will be like, well, what about this? Do you think? And then it's like, no, because of this and the weather and this actually happens. And it's like, oh, okay. Like that kind of stuff could play off. That's why I thought it was like great that you can connect each other. And yeah, it was interesting, because you have, how do people make decisions? And it isn't just history. It's also like I don't know. So, some people just have like intuition of certain things, even though it has never happened to them before, but they just have that feeling. Like I would say in sports, some people are better than others because they have an innate sense, even though they've never seen it before. There's an innate sense, and as they gain experience, it just feeds into their innate sense. So I thought it was like, it's an interesting topic to like what they're talking about.
Well, I see we're at the top of the hour, and there's certainly more to say, but perhaps that will be said next week. Any final thoughts for the people?
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Maybe download Whisperflow, or if you're an every subscriber, launch Monologue and give voice AI interface a try and see if your life changes slightly. How's that for the for a little thing to take into the weekend? So we're here Monday through Friday. We'll be back next Monday with more good stories. And yeah, more good AI. All right. Take care, everybody.